What's up, guys? Me and Larson are back with our week 2 wrap up college football picks. We both had a pretty successful week. The big news for this week, it is Vanderbilt week. We have Vandy versus Northern Illinois. Vandy's a road underdog at +1, but if they hit this week, they're over 3 wins, and if they don't, they probably aren't going to hit it. We'll see. They got a chance versus Missouri. That's another hedge spot, so I'm not worried about hedging here. But we'll talk about that on the show later this week.
They actually look a lot better than I thought they would.
They even held their own.
They look competitive.
They didn't look horrible.
Yeah.
I actually might take I think I did take Vandy this week. But yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. So let's start off with whatever games we both had. The big play of the week was ECU -12. ECU looked good at home. That was a really good one. But the one we talked about that felt so easy, this might be the easiest play of the year, was Georgia-Samford under 64. That game was never coming close to 64 points.
Yeah. I don't know how many points Samford would even need to score, even you swing in that. There was just no chance given the Kirby-Chris Hatcher relationship, and Kirby's not one to run up the score. There's just no way. So that was an easy one.
Yeah. I would say the big letdown was probably Ohio. I thought they would come out with a little more fight than that. They look good.
Seriously.
They look really good, but week 1. But yeah, they kind of laid down against Penn State. Penn State was obviously not looking ahead to Auburn, but that we'll get to that game obviously in the show later as well. What were the other big ones I had? Miami Southern Miss under 51.5 was a great play.
That was a good one. Yeah, that was a good one. I felt really comfortable with that one, especially even though the line moved down during the week. I wasn't fazed by it at all. The Penn State thing, like, that's usually a really sleepy spot for them. They play these weird noon games on ABC against random teams, and it's usually somewhat close. They kept their foot on the gas, though. Ohio had absolutely no intention of scoring at all. That Miami under, I felt really good about that one. That was probably my best bet of the week. Other than that, it would have been probably Michigan in the first quarter.
That was
Michigan
a good one as well.
Kept the foot on the pedal the whole time against Hawaii. Yeah.
Let's talk about some of these so-called rat lines. The one that I called maybe the biggest rat line of the year, App State +19, and they go and win outright.
Yeah. I hate it. So I actually put in a little Texas A&M first half, sprinkled that kind of on my own before it started, just because I was thinking they'll come out and they'll look a lot better. The overreaction was week 1, Texas A&M did not look good against whoever it was, Sam Houston State, something like that. It was like everyone's saying Texas A&M doesn't look good, and I was like, well, that's the overreaction, and they'll come out and they'll be better, at least in the first half. And no, that's not the case at all. Like, they actually are not good. And Haynes King is not good. And that offense is just brutal to watch. I mean, half of their 14 points was a kick return touchdown. Their offense can't produce. On App State's defense that made North Carolina last week look like the Chiefs. So so I don't even know where you go from there. And I think I saw Haynes King had like the worst QBR that's Petrus, but Haynes King was up there. Sorry, yeah.
Did you imagine the Marshall Georgia Southern App State moneyline parlay?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even take. We touched on Marshall a little bit. That line was weird. I didn't really elaborate on the show last week, but like, why was that only 20? Shouldn't that have been like 28 for Notre Dame? You would think, but no. No. Yeah, they're not good either.
I haven't checked the line for Cal Notre Dame yet, but hopefully there's a big overreaction. And I think Notre Dame will handle Cal pretty easily. They don't look good. They only beat UNLV by 6.
Yeah. Well, I think so. It opened at 14. I want to say it's down to 10.5 for Notre Dame. The only problem is the total's 41, and both of those defenses are in the top 25 for efficient defenses. So I've been looking at it. It's on my board. Do I want to maybe tease Cal to 17? I don't think you lose Cal in a tease at 17, or the game just goes under. I think under 41 is a good one because, Notre Dame, especially in the first half of their 2 games, have been super low scoring, 10-7, 9-7 kind of games. I think to expect the same against Cal, because Cal's not very good, but there shouldn't be a ton of points in that.
No, I don't think so either. Notre Dame, I mean, really, what does that say about Ohio State, who also, that's another team that did not cover this week. They didn't look fantastic.
Golly. Either. Oh, they looked horrible. And Arkansas State, I mean, you could see Butch Jones, who I forgot was the coach of Arkansas State, was over on the sidelines, just like, oh, I guess this is going to happen, just clapping it up, like they were moving the ball. Florida State's former quarterback, Blackman, is their quarterback. He's been in college
Really?
for a long time, yeah. So it's just a weird cast of characters over there. Ohio State's defense is just not good. I know it's still early. It's only week 2, but their defense is just not. And I trust Jim Knowles to turn it around. They got a lot of time, but I mean, if Georgia or Bama, even as bad as Bama looked, as sloppy as Bama looked, if they played Ohio State, they put up 100 points.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I think Ohio State probably my worst bet of the weekend for sure, because I said on the show between team total, full game spread, and first half spread, I said you're going 2-1 at the worst, and we went 0-3. So I might just be a week early though on that, because they have Toledo this week. They get Smith and Jigba back, so that might be the time to take it, but I don't know.
Air Force, we sweated Air Force a little bit, but they pulled away at the end. They play Wyoming.
Did you watch it at all?
I was at Paloma, and they had the Tennessee. I was glued to Tennessee Pitt.
Yeah, you didn't miss much. It was like Air Force seriously should have won the game by 5 touchdowns, and I'm not exaggerating. Like 3 or 4 times they drove inside the red zone and fumbled. Like not once, not twice, 3 times. So that was an unnecessary sweat for sure.
Yeah, but we did pull off on that one in the end. Another one that this was one that this one felt ratty, but at the end of the day, it was one of those like, all right, I'm using my brain here so I can rationalize it. Arkansas -8. I knew Arkansas was just going to be way more physical than South Carolina in the trenches, offensive, defensive line. I mean, they were teeing off on Spencer Rattler. And yeah, Arkansas was just the better team. Sam Pittman, I like Shane Beamer. They go back to their days at Georgia, but I just knew that Arkansas was the better team. And I'm going to trust that. I don't think South Carolina is that good, and I don't think that Spencer Rattler is that good. And they made him pay. That offensive line is not good. It might be one of the worst in the SEC behind Vandy, Mizzou, the usual customers. Yeah. And they were making them pay.
Yeah, and Arkansas let them in that game. Like Arkansas took it. I can't remember what the score was. I want to say it was 21-7, 20. It was a little better than that, I think, but they let South Carolina back in the game too and almost blew it. But handled them pretty comfortably. We should have a field day on the line of scrimmage against Carolina this week, which
that's what I've been thinking.
Could be ugly. I would hope so.
I got Georgia at 24 before the line moved. That's tasty. And South Alabama +5. That was one of your plays that I took. I just ended up taking.
I wanted to take a money line too. I had two like really under the radar random underdogs, South Alabama and Liberty, and I wanted to take them both on money line, and I took neither, and they both won outright. So I just gotta start doing that. Honestly, Michigan. Louisville was the other one. I wanted to take Louisville last Friday on the money line. I didn't do it. I don't know why.
Yeah, Louisville was another one of my plays. I had that on the Friday slate. So let's talk about this next one that I have. So Iowa team total is just going to be a system play now, isn't it? Huh?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
21.5. They never thought about 21.5. They barely thought about 7.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be a play every week. And I sat here and regretted not taking it.
Well, we talked about this when we did the Big Ten preview. You were all over Iowa under wins, and I said, it just feels like Iowa. They're just always going to win 8 games, whatever. I don't know about that this year, man. Their offense might be the worst in all of football. Like, there's probably FCS teams that have better offenses.
No, they said it was Chris Felica from College Game Day tweeted the worst QBRs and like some of the worst ones. Like I said, Haynes King was on there, right? They're like 15. Petras is like 3 out of 100. That it's horrible. He can't throw. It's unbelievable that he just can't throw. He can't throw out routes or anything at the end of that game. And
he's
I was
probably
in
the territory of like you'd be better off spiking the ball every play in his QBR.
Or run a wildcat or something. I don't know what Ferentz thinks. He's not going to change his system though. But I've bet Iowa State in that game the last like 2 or 3 years. Obviously last year I was really heavy on them and they couldn't do it. And this year I didn't. I stayed away from the game and they win. Happy for him, but yeah, I will definitely be dabbling in Iowa's team total under this week, and probably the full game under because they play Nevada, and Nevada is just awful. Nevada is one of the 3 teams I'm really looking to play team total under this week because they won't be able to score at all. It's gonna be like their team total is gonna be 4, and they're not gonna get that.
These last two games, we talked about Michigan. We can talk about Michigan again if you want. I don't think there's too much to say. The last two I have, luckily, I bought a point for Pittsburgh, so I didn't push on that one. I had Pitt 7.5, and then or 6.5, excuse me. And then Louisiana, Eastern Michigan under 51. That one just system play that didn't work out. It's okay.
I was gonna say I totally forgot about it until you mentioned it. I totally forgot we did that one, but I guess maybe we ride the under again the next Louisiana home game. I don't know. Yeah, the Pitt game was an absolute war because they blew the lead, of course, and then Slovis is down, backup comes in, he looks good, then he's hurt, he's on one ankle, so at the end of the day, I was fine with a push. Just get me out of there without a loss. I was happy with it.
Yeah, seriously. Well, once it went to overtime, you knew you were golden.
Yeah,
unless they started going for two. Yeah, unless they started going for two.
Unless you got a situation like Kansas beat West Virginia, and Kansas scored the first touchdown in overtime, and they got a pick six, so they won by 13 in overtime, which is really weird.
That is brutal.
But yeah, were you on Kentucky?
I was not, and I should have been. We should have not. You talked about that. The line was an overreaction.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I didn't get that. I think is Anthony Richardson as good as we saw him in Week 1 against Utah? I don't think so. Now, is he as bad as we saw him?
Than Carson Beck.
Yeah. So is he as bad as we saw him? Probably not. But the Heisman Trophy #1 pick hype for Richardson that needs to stop, and I think it has now. But Kentucky's a good team, and they always get up for Week 2. They play Florida in Week 2 every year, and they're always hyped up about it. Mark Stoops is Mark Stoops like the white Mike Tomlin of college football? Like when they are underdogs, like he gets them ready. They are prepared. So I thought that was a great pick. I love that one. I had Stanford in the night slate, which I didn't like as a pick, but it was kind of a system pick that I had to do. And
you made me cancel that.
They almost backdoored. They almost backdoored
it. Yes, they did.
So it's I take that loss. I think that was really all I had. I was mad because I was touting the Bama Texas under.
I was just about to talk about this. Right before the game, I had my finger on the button for Texas, and I was like, maybe the public's just right. And of course, man, we had the same conversation. Do you know anybody betting on Texas? No, not a single person.
No, right. That's why the system works. That's why the amount of times that one team's getting 95% of the bet, and you talk to friends, or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I just can't see Alabama not covering. It's like, like no one can. That's why it's not a good bet. And so Texas I didn't think it would be that competitive. I was a little blown away by how sloppy Alabama was. But yeah, I was all over the under, and I didn't bet it. I talked up the under all week, even as the number kept moving up and up. I said, I just don't see it going over. And I didn't bet it, and I really should have. That's the one that killed me. So
yeah, I went against that was like a mind over matter type thing. Like I see Alabama play, and I'm like, they're so good, and Texas probably just isn't there yet. But I mean, you should have just not. They probably built a damn diamond casino in Vegas with the money that they made off of that game.
Oh my gosh, tons. It's funny that we had that was like one of the things we talked about, and then we had 3 things on the show last week that we like briefly touched on that were basically completely accurate. Like the first one was the Michigan -13. We said Michigan will be up 45-0 at halftime. They're up 42-0 at halftime. That's fine. That's close enough. We touched on Marshall, saying that was a fishy game. We didn't talk about it, but we just said that's a really fishy game. That's really weird. Marshall ends up winning. The other one was Wisconsin was a 17-point favorite. You said, is Wisconsin even going to score 17 points? They get 14.
They did not.
So that's something to monitor too. Yeah. I'm looking to play them under this week too. They play New Mexico State this week. They're 37-point favorites. I'm gonna go under, and New Mexico State under. New Mexico State team total will be 3.5, and I'll go under on that. So them in Nevada.
This is great for my I got it. I'm gonna check in on my preseason wins a little bit. I'm feeling good about Wisconsin under 9 wins, Clemson under 10.5. They look pretty pedestrian against Furman. Georgia Tech under 3.5. They did not look good against Western Carolina. Virginia under 7 is another one I feel really.
I love that one. I love that Virginia one, and I I was monitoring them week 1. They played Richmond, and it was like a close game for the first half. I was like, if they could lose this, it's done. Yeah, I don't think, for the record, I think it's the following week they play Syracuse at Syracuse, and I like Syracuse in that game. I
Brennan
know I'm a big
Armstrong
Syracuse
is
guy, but
yeah, I think Syracuse is kind of frisky this year.
they're
I think
good. Yeah.
frisky. They're going to be a team that covers a lot. But Brennan Armstrong, we talk about that list of worst QBRs. I think he was 3rd or 4th on there. He has like a 35 something.
Well, and he has no time to throw. He has a completely new offensive line, which was one of the main reasons I was against him this season. But it's an entirely new team. It's an entirely new coaching staff, and the ACC is kind of like the Big 12 a little bit. Like, anything can happen. You don't really know about the teams in the middle. So yeah, NC State. Yeah.
By the way, I want to talk about this a little bit. Is Duke better than we thought?
I don't know. I was thinking about that. I put in a little bet on Northwestern -10 and regretted it 3 minutes into the game. But it's good for my Northwestern win total under. But is Duke better than we thought? I don't know. They're playing a little bit more physical than we thought. If they can beat Georgia Tech, though. If they can beat Georgia Tech,
I got Georgia
huge.
Tech at under 3.5 wins. They might have just got their one and only win this weekend. Georgia Tech does not look good. Jeff Sims looked. I had big player props on Jeff Sims last week. He did not show up. No touchdowns, a pick. He didn't rush for very many yards. Very unfortunate. Let's see who else. Yeah. Any other games? BYU and Baylor. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I didn't have anything on this game. And the whole thing, just from the jump, this BYU Oregon game is going to be maybe the biggest stay away of the season for me. Oregon at home. But hey, how good does Georgia look if Oregon wins that game?
Yeah, very nice. I think too, I look at that as kind of, are those two teams really that different, BYU and Oregon? Because you're basically saying, with Oregon as a 3-point favorite at home, you're basically saying on a neutral field these teams are the same. I don't know if I believe that. I think BYU actually could be better.
I agree.
So I might look to bet BYU this week. It worries me a little bit that the public is betting BYU pretty heavily. Might keep me away. But if I'm going to play something in that game, it's probably going to be BYU. Because I had him this week against Baylor. That was a great game. We stayed for the whole thing. It was a great game. Baylor's kicker just missed another kick wide left as we're recording this. And I think I was high on BYU before the season because they return a lot of guys, and that's something I want to look at, especially against Oregon. It's pretty much a new team with a new coaching staff, and I know Autzen can be a tough place to play, but I lean BYU in that game for sure.
Yeah,
at least for me.
Another one that I didn't play that we did talk about that I said I would potentially consider, the over in North Carolina, Georgia State. I thought that was a definitely, it barely hit, but Georgia State was in that game, man. It could have been a real pick.
They are. They're in these games. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm actually going to take Georgia State this week in some capacity. I'm trying to figure out how I want to bet them, because they play Charlotte. Charlotte is on the fade list now big time because they are down to their 3rd string quarterback. It's a team that I think really has the makings of a team that could quit, that could really give in to the season, because they came in with some expectations of being kind of a frisky team in their conference and have been absolutely just devastated by injuries through the first 2 weeks of the season, including their 2 quarterbacks. And so they can't stop anybody. They played Maryland this week. I actually put in Maryland first half because I thought Maryland was just going to run up the score, and they did. So Charlotte goes to Georgia State this week. Georgia State, who's been in these 2 competitive games against Power 5 teams, they're going to want to come out and make a statement, I would think, and they're at home.
I agree.
So they're -20. I expect Charlotte not to be able to get a stop. So I'm trying to figure out, do I want to go Georgia State, maybe like a team total, maybe first half? I don't know. I got to figure it out, but there will be a Georgia State bet on my card for sure.
I think that's all I got. You got anything else?
What do you think your best and worst bets were?
I think my best was definitely Georgia Stanford under 64, maybe my best bet of the season. That game should have been at like 51. Yeah, and I guess it should have been at about 35, but yeah. I didn't think Stanford would score. Their defense was a little frisky, but even if you turn those Georgia field goals into touchdowns, this game was still probably 20 points short. I just did not think Kirby Smart and Chris Hatcher go back to Valdosta State in the year 2000. He was not about to run the score up and embarrass that man and run him out of Athens. And my worst one, I didn't have this as a system play, but I took it. Over on the Extra Street Boys, a podcast, the UGA podcast I do. We pick an over every week, and I just picked Mississippi State and Arizona. I kind of thought that Mississippi State's defense. Yeah, I mean it only missed by a little bit, but I had a pretty good week. I can't really complain. I did take Ohio State, but I figured that was what you already said. So
yeah, no, that definitely would be mine. I might have to stay away from the Buckeyes for a minute, but
me too.
Yeah, I don't want to touch them. I think they've got to shore up some defensive stuff.
This is the week I won't take them to just throttle some poor team, and then they're going to do it this week.
Yeah. Well, I think they're minus 31 against Toledo. I don't know if I want to. I think they play Wisconsin after that too. I don't know is there a look ahead spot for Wisconsin if you're Ohio State? There might not be.
I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah, I've got a few things I'm looking at. I'm gonna wait for the public to even things out. I would love to see the public get behind LSU. Make me feel a little bit better about taking Mississippi State.
I already got him at -2. I took him at -3, and then I double dipped on -2. I like Mississippi State a lot.
Yeah,
my favorite bet next week. Yeah. I got it early. Ole Miss -14 against Georgia Tech. I think they run them out of the building.
Yeah, I don't disagree there at all. It's a very random game. So
there should be a lot of Ole Miss representation in Atlanta too. I feel like a lot of people go to Ole Miss, so they'll have some crowd there. Honestly, they may outnumber Tech fans. So,
and this might be the second week in a row that we're on Louisville on a Friday night. Because if the public's going to hammer Florida State, hammer them. They're, I think, the most heavily bet team right now from the public.
It was 95% yesterday.
Yeah, then I'm going to have to take Louisville, especially at home. Louisville can handle that. So, yeah.
I agree.
I looked at that out. Did you bet NFL at all?
Absolutely not.
No?
See, I can't bet. Dude, the NFL is harder to bet than like predicting the damn stock market.
Yeah. No, I stay away from it for the most part, and I went in on some plays really lightly, just kind of for fun and just to see how I would do, and I went 10-1. It's like, all right, we'll take.
I almost went in on Seattle last night just because 91% of the public was on the Broncos.
Yeah, I had Seattle. I thought, I thought, but again, with the NFL, you got to take underdog money lines. I think that's the key. I got to take a lot of underdog money lines because.
That's my strategy. If like when we had to do NFL picks, like when we did them on the site, like I just took underdogs all the time because I feel like that's typically how it goes. I mean, we saw plenty of underdogs covered this week: Panthers, Falcons, Minnesota. I mean, the underdogs were out and about.
Home underdogs are big, in the NFL. So we'll see.
Bears too. I mean, the Bears beat the 49. Like, come on. Like that if you just look at the slate and you say, oh, the 49ers are 4-point favorites, they'll get that easy.
The funniest thing about that is because I had Bears +7, so I was trying to keep up with it on Red Zone. The thing about the Bears is like if you have Bears +7, the moment that the other team scores more than 7 points, you're usually not going to win your bet because their offense is so bad. And I don't know how they got better in the monsoon. They got better in a hurricane as the rain came. So it doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, that's going to do it for us. Like I said, we'll be back tomorrow or Thursday, and we'll be doing our full picks for the slate next week. I've got a couple good ones, as you know, we've already talked about a couple of them, but we'll be with Jason, Alex, and see you guys this week.